Hey everybody, it's Jim from Alliance RV. A lot of times we get phone calls from people who have come to a campground, they've gotten off their truck and they go inside and there's no power. They call us, what's going on? Help me out. So join me and we're going to explore the different things that it could be causing the situation, and we'll get you camping in no time. So it's not very pleasant to be camping in the dark, so let's fix that. Thank you, Bill. A lot of times when people get to a campground, they get set up. They plug in their coach, they expect everything to operate and nothing turns on, or they have an issue where only some things turn on. First thing that I always ask when people call with this problem is, hey, have you plugged your coach in? I know that sounds rudimentary, but some situations that has been overlooked. No big deal. Plug it in and see if that works. Other situations are, I've got it plugged in, but nothing seems to be operating. None of the receptacles work. One of the things that I suggest trying is go to the pedestal that you plugged into and make sure that the breakers are flipped on. It's common practice for campgrounds to turn the breakers off when they clean the site from the last user. And so you may plug it in and there's just simply no power flowing to your coach at that point. Turn the breakers on. If the breakers are on, the next thing I would ask is that you go to your coach where the shore power cord enters your coach. The style of connector is it goes in and it turns and it stays vertical. We want that connector to be up and down vertical with the ground, because if it's not fully vertical, the connections may not be connecting inside and thus no power being allowed into the coach. Some situations we run into are people with surge protectors. If they've got a surge protector, they've plugged into the pedestal and they've plugged in their shore power cord and their shore power cord is connected to the camper correctly, they're still not getting power in there, maybe take a look at your surge protector. Your surge protector may be protecting your camper from a power error being delivered to you from the campground power source. So it may actually be stopping power to save your camper, which is a great thing. That's why you have that surge protector or EMS. So take a look at that, see if there's any error lights or any error messages there. Other situations that we run into is if they've traveled, when I say the camper has traveled through water, they've driven all day, they ran through a rainstorm, they get there, and we get a situation where some of the outlets aren't operating throughout the coach. What's going on? The breakers are all fine, they're all in the on position, but some of my outlets aren't working, and it's seemingly random around the coach. Well, those may all be on the GFI circuit, and the GFI circuit is reset by a receptacle typically found in the bathroom, though not exclusively. So go look for your GFCI receptacle and try to reset it. If it's able to be reset, great, that's awesome. I bet you have power back to those receptacles that you're talking about. If you press the reset button and it won't allow you to reset, that's a very good indication that there's some moisture somewhere in the electrical components of that circuit, likely the outside receptacle on a slide or any other outside receptacle on the coach because you drove through rain to get there. In a situation like that, you'll want to dry out the outside receptacles in general or wait some time and then try to reset it. But the rest of your coach should be operational because that's only affecting the GFCI circuit. Another scenario that we get asked about is there's no lights in the coach, or the furnace doesn't work, or the thermostats won't come on, or the fans won't operate. Those are all 12-volt items. Those all run off of your battery power. Now, if you're already at this point, you've probably gotten the coach off your truck, so you think your batteries are fine. But there's one thing that you may not be considering. The battery disconnect must be in the on position to allow power to be supplied to the coach and the rest of those systems that I just mentioned. So that's something that's easy to check. You go up front to the coach, it's always towards the front of the coach, and you want it to be in the on position, and then that should allow power in and to be dispersed to the various 12-volt circuits of the coach. So something else that's worth checking is the condition of your breakers. And again, this coach is a Solar Plus coach, so it has 2 panels, but in general, you'll have 1 panel if you don't have a Solar Plus coach. You want to make sure all your breakers are in the on position. Very similar to your house, really no different. If any of them are in a tripped position, meaning kind of sticking out straight, then you'd have to turn them off and turn them back on in order to reset them. That would affect that particular circuit. So if you have some outlets down, or if you have one appliance down, this is a great place to take a look because it may very well be just as simple as a tripped breaker. While we're here, we were talking about 12 volt a few minutes ago. This is where all the 12 volt circuits get their power through. They don't use breakers, they use fuses. Classic blade fuses that you can buy at any auto parts store or Walmart. And what you'll see is if you're seeing a particular set of lights down, or the water heater or the furnace or one specific item, great places to come here and check the condition of the fuses. There's provided a label as to what fuse is for what circuit, so that helps you identify that. You'll often see a red light on this panel if a fuse is blown. I use the word often because it's not always, but that if you do see a red light here, that's a very good indication that you do have a blown fuse and there's something going on with that circuit, and that may help you in your diagnostic process. But it should not affect other aspects of the coach in that situation. As I mentioned previously, if you have power in most of the coach, but certain seemingly random things aren't operating correctly, 120 when I'm referring to this, so that is something that we talked about being possibly a GFI situation. So here's what I'm talking about, the GFCI receptacle. Typically in your bathrooms, though there are alternate locations in various other floor plans, we want to see this green light right here. This green light indicates that there's power to the GFCI circuit and that the GFCI receptacle is allowing power to pass through to the various other receptacles that come after this receptacle and are protected by this receptacle. So right now in this situation, you see it's green. Let's put it into a potential situation where it has tripped. The light's off. Now nothing after this receptacle is powered, and it's not in any one spot on the coach. It's all over the coach. So you may have, again, those random receptacles. What I want you to do is come up here and press the reset button. If the reset button is able to be depressed and the green light stays on, then that means that the receptacle has power and it's transmitting power to the rest of the circuit. If you press that reset button and the green light does not come on, that means it will not reset. That could potentially mean that, as previously mentioned, you have some water intrusion within a receptacle or in a wire connection somewhere in the coach, or possibly you could have a loose connection at a different receptacle down the road, down the stream of this, where it's not having full contact and the GFCI receptacle is not allowing it to be reset. So we discussed loose connections previously, and they could happen anywhere, but this is a great first spot to check for them. You would take the receptacle out and you would open it up and you would see 1, 2, or 3 wires connected to the back side of this. Those wire individual conductors are pressed into these connection points. If any one of them were loose, had vibrated free from travel, that could potentially lead to a poor connection, and the GFCI receptacle may not allow it to be reset. So what I would do is pull off the back, make sure the connections are nice and solid, firmly pressed into those connection points, and put the back on. They just clip on, super easy. This same type of receptacle is used throughout the coach, so this could be checked in the same way in any of the other receptacles. Well, thanks for joining us on this. I hope we were able to solve your power situation at the campsite. If not, we absolutely encourage you to reach out to your dealer for assistance. Alternatively, you could certainly call us or shoot an email into service@alliancerv.com. Another great resource is our Alliance Facebook group, along with all the other various social media platforms, and search @AllianceRV.